is Sam Robinson, and this is the Gnostic Syncretist Podcast. Thank you for joining me tonight. And tonight we will be continuing to go over the reincarnation process and the differing planes of and states of existence through which the reincarnation process unfolds. And in our last video, we went over the Cosmic Evolutionary Scheme and the different states of consciousness that the monad ensouls with its vehicle of the body ensouls through, which were the mineral state of consciousness, the plant state of consciousness, and the animal state of consciousness, and then we reach the human stage. And in each one of these stages, we gain a new subtle body and gain greater levels of perception for experience and range of ability for the world that we live in to experience. So in each stage, we'll just go over it briefly. In the mineralized state of consciousness and the extremely etheric earth state that we are in, we only have a physical body and a divine spark. And we unfold in that environment. And then the next stage, which is the second stage, is the plant state of consciousness, which is basically a state of consciousness that is like a dreamless sleep, and you gain an ether body. All plants have an ether body, and so do we. But in that stage, we just had an ether body, a physical body, and a divine spark. And the next stage, which is the animal stage of consciousness and stage of evolution, so to speak, the human gains an astral body, or what's also called a desire body, and evolves both its physical, its ether, and astral body, and gets the germ of the I, which is still not active yet. There is no self-consciousness, and it has been referred to as a state of consciousness that is dream-filled state of consciousness. So it's like being in a dream and having images that are chaotic and, only impressions of the world around us. And the earth was in a state which allowed us to experience it in such a way. And then in the next stage, the human stage, the self-conscious ego starts to fully germinate, and we get also a mental body. And that is the fourth stage. And the human at that point becomes physical, becomes endowed with a form of self-consciousness. The I becomes awakened, and we start to appear outside of ourselves and not just internally. Because in the three previous stages, we are mainly only able to perceive internally. Once you hit the fourth and the human stage, our self-consciousness projects out, we get a mental body, and the ego perceives its environment as we kind of do today, basically. And it's a very, very low-level form of consciousness initially, and it grows as it develops into the state we have today, which has rationalization, reason, conceptualization, so on. And all these stages are necessary to understand because it is our past, our cosmic past of development, our spiritual development to the state we have today, which is the human stage with full conceptualization, a somewhat developed mental body, of a rather developed astral body, a very developed ether body, and an extremely developed physical body. And all these states were gained over evolution, over the cosmic evolution of the monad in a vehicle. And it goes through each stage over a long period of time to gain each one of these subtle bodies. So this is how the human gains subtle bodies, is over an evolutionary scheme and through reinsoulment of the monad in the incarnation process. We are reincarnated over and over again through vast aeons of time, gaining our subtle bodies, and the earth incarnates along with us, and we both densify together until we gain greater perception and a dense physical environment that we're in today. We are in a fully physicalized earth in a fully physicalized body with our subtle bodies. And we have most of our subtle body. We basically have all our subtle bodies at this point, but they're not all fully developed. The mental body is still being developed. The astral body is still in development, and our most developed ones are the ether body and the physical body. And this is what the ancient mystery schools and the current esoteric mystery tradition teaches about the cosmic evolution of humanity and of the earth. There are earth incarnations and there are human incarnations, and they evolve concurrently. So, the doctrines regarding the reincarnation cycle were always taught to those students that became initiated into the traditions. This was a restriction of information back in the past, largely due to a belief that those individuals which successfully completed initiation were seen as spiritually capable of accepting this liberating information and knowledge about reincarnation. And I will say it used to be a part of the Christian tradition back in its inception and was lost over time due to the church, unfortunately. But the original Christians also believed in reincarnation. So this was back in the past. It was basically highly guarded information and pertained to the process of monadic ensoulment within the cosmos along our evolutionary scheme, our spiritual development scheme. The mystery traditions of ancient Greece, this was often also called metempsychosis, and was a secret held by only the adepts given to the initiated neophytes, and only the ones that were initiated into the higher mysteries. So there's the lesser mysteries and the higher mysteries. This doctrine was also held by many respected and influential philosophers, including Pythagoras, Plato, Buddha, Iamblichus, Porphyry, Henry Moore, David Hume, Schopenhauer, Emerson, Nietzsche, and many others besides this. But here is a short list of the people that definitely held this belief. The foundation upon which the cosmos has structured our evolutionary process and scheme as one for continual progress to be obtained is entirely predicated upon this singular doctrine of reincarnation of the monad to gain development and experience, without which the totality of our human suffering, which we see around us every day, would probably and entirely remain purposeless and an eternal enigma to us. This helps explain why people are in the stages of suffering that they're in, because it is stages for growth. And I know that's, in some sense, very hard to understand, but it does help give you a level of understanding as to why things occur in such a way and why there's so much suffering. The suffering is hopefully going to lead to more development, regardless of what state you're in. But the law of reincarnation stipulates that every monadic spark must by necessity and according to eternal law be subject to cycles of ensoulment and the causes and effects resulting from the actions taken in the life or previous ones. This chain of rippling causality is designed to aid in the progressive experiential and spiritual evolution of the immortal essence of the divine spark. It doesn't always result in that, but that's why we get to try again and again, because it is a process of development. We don't get it the first time. That would be impossible. Each monad attains growth with every new incarnating personality. The personality, I will have to say, does not reincarnate. I will never be again as this individual, Sam Robinson. In the next incarnation, I will not have any memory of this person, this personality. It's only the monad that reincarnates. And the experience that was gained goes back into the monad, but there's no memory of your past life unless you do some sort of, hypnosis or past life regression to see those previous lives, and it's not always beneficial. It can be, but it's not necessarily. Every action generated, be it positive or negative, includes an effect which is called karma, which will inevitably be experienced by the incarnating monad and then absorbed into it as experience. The cycle of reincarnation is not solely just human experiences. Every animal and every plant also reincarnates, so to speak, but they do not have individuality yet. That is only attained in the human stage. So the cycle permeates all of existence. Everything is part of the process. We were in the different stages that seem as lesser forms of being to us now. We've already gone through those stages, and those stages, the plant and animal stage or the mineral stage, of existence also have monads that are gaining development and levels of perception and will be humans in the future. Animals are future humans, the monads in those animals. And plants are future animals. In the mineral stage, those monads are future plants. It is all in progression. So we were in those stages previously, and those in that stage now, those monads will be in our stage in the future, however far off into the future. It is fundamental to bear that in mind, that animals are future humans, so we should treat them well. Each monadic essence is a differentiated spark from the one, and it must experience all of life before all the previous forms of life, mineral, plant, animal, or those states of consciousness really, before becoming a human state of consciousness for the monad. The monad is incarnated at first in the mineral world, which evolves from there to ensoulment in the vegetable or plant state of existence, or state of consciousness, and then it becomes ensouled in the animal stage. But really, it's a stage of consciousness, bear that in mind. And once all those experiences are absorbed into the monadic entity, it finally incarnates into a human form, which is where we are today. The concept of metempsychosis and transmigration are often used interchangeably to delineate the same process, though they are not. Many conflate the two, unknowingly erring in supposing their equivalents, and thus they perpetuate a fallacy. There exist intrinsic and distinct differences between these two terms and their conceptual spiritual process of rebirth. In transmigration, you can regress back into a previous stage of evolution, while in reincarnation, that is not the case. You never go back to the plant state. You never go back to the animal state, no matter how bad your karma. Everyone needs to bear that in mind, that there's no regression. And I know I've gone over this in the previous video, but for those who didn't see the previous video, I want to re-highlight some of the things that were fundamental in the last video. There is sometimes the erroneous belief that upon physical expiration, the soul essence can become re-ensouled into a lesser life form, such as an insect or an animal. This is in actuality the very definition of transmigration and was not taught by the mystery tradition. The esoteric mystery tradition did not teach that. So that is a regression in evolution. So it's not evolution, it's de-evolution. That does not occur. And you never go back into that state. The ensoulment cycle, the post-death state of a disincarnated personality, undergoes a particular systematic process whereby the knowledge, understanding, experience, and resulting karma of the personality is filtered and then absorbed into the totality of its eternal essence, or monad. The process of subsequent absorption occurs over a lengthy period of time, with the disincarnated personality continuing to exist in an extra-physical or super-physical state until the totality of its experience of data is incorporated into the monad blueprint to be taken into the future incarnation. The real reincarnation process involves this progressive and systematic reinstallment into a vehicle of the same type as the one of the previous life, which is the human, though it may still suffer from karmic consequences, depending on how it lived its previous life, but it never regresses back into a lower form. Thus, it stipulates that the previous incarnated personality's mental and emotional bodies will supersede and still exist upon physical expiration, continuing to reside in a state of personalized existence to a degree until incorporated into the monad. This process will always occur and transpires in several phases. I say two, there's more than two, but tonight we will, to a degree, just go into a couple of these processes. The first one involves the gradual absorption. So, okay, upon death, you die. This is when the silver cord is cut. We pass away. Upon immediate passing away, we lose our physical dense body, and our consciousness is still residing in the etheric and the astral body. But right upon death, everyone has been told and has heard about all the different experiences people have of when they almost die, of having their life pass before their eyes. Well, that does occur. That occurs every time. And that's because the ether body is the receptacle for all of our memories. But while it's still attached to the dense body, our physical body, we don't ever see the entirety of our memories at one time, because that would make everything extremely chaotic and it's too much to process at one time. But when we lose our physical body upon death, according to the Rosicrucians and according to Theosophy and Anthroposophy in the mystery tradition, we are now residing just in that ether and astral body, and thus we experience the totality of the memories of life. They go before the mind's eye, starting upon the moment that we passed, right before that, and going backwards through time, back down to our birth. And we see every single aspect of our lives unfold before our mind's eye, because the mental body is still attached to ether and astral bodies at this time. And since there's no physical body to impede this memory process, we see the entirety of it. And according to the tradition, it takes place over either many hours or multiple days, maybe even a week at most. We see our whole life march before our eyes back towards our birth. And that takes place over about a week or less, depending on the individual. And once the ether body has run its course, it too expires. The ether body dies, and the seed atom of the ether body and the experiences in its development becomes absorbed into the monad for a future incarnation. And at this point, you are now only in a mental body and an astral body. And the astral body is also called the desire body. And once you reach that stage, post-death, and you're just in an astral body and a mental body, you undergo what's basically purgatory. It's a purgation of desire. And it's a very, very interesting scheme, actually. And this part of the process of the post-life experience is fascinating. You undergo a purgatory of all the desires or attachments that you had during your physical life, but you experience it purely as an astral desire body fashion. You experience it only as desire. You do not experience it physically. You do not experience it etherically. It is just your astral body and your mind going through and you basically kind of go through another form of past life regression, where you see your entirety of your life flash before your eyes again, but it takes much longer this time. And as you go through backwards, you go through all the different things you desired or were attached to in your physical life. And the best way to understand this is if you had an addiction. That's the best way to describe this is if you had an addiction, you have to purge that attachment to that thing, that desire for that thing. And until you purge that, that desire body does not pass away and get absorbed into the monad. And so it can take a long time, or it can typically they say it takes about a third of your lifetime. However many years you lived, a third of that. So if you were 50, it's roughly 15 or 16 years to purge the desires and attachments of the physical life. So how this unfolds, say you're a drunk. If you were a drunk, you will basically be unable to fulfill that desire in that state, because you no longer have a physical vehicle to fulfill that. You are in a purely astral desire form and with your mind, but you have no physical body, so you cannot sate the desire you had during life that drove you to drink. You may end up going to to bars or to places where people are drinking and try to feed off the people that are drinking to sate that desire, but you were never able to actually do it because you no longer have physical sense bodies so you can't actually really experience it. So it is obviously a purgatory because desires cannot be sated, yet you still desire them. And until that process is completed and you overcome those desires, the desire body does not dissolve and become part of the monad for the next life. And it varies on person, but as they say, it's about a third of the life for the average individual, give or take. So the desire body dissolves once this is completed. And also the seed atom of that desire astral body will become absorbed into the monad for future incarnation. It's not that you'll have the same desire body or astral body or ether body. It's that you'll have the root essence of the experience as part of your development for the next incarnation. And once that occurs, you're now just only in your mind. You're just in your mental body. And this part is followed after that astral body expires and is reabsorbed. Now you're in just the mental body, and you're kind of in a phantasmagoria state for apparently hundreds of years, according to the tradition. The average incarnation period before the next incarnation is apparently 800 to 1,000 years, according to most of the people that have gone on the record, from Alien P. Hall to Blavatsky to Rudolf Steiner. You take a long time before you reincarnate again. And the second phase, typically 500, 800 years, when ultimately the previously incarnated personality entirely disintegrates, being now merely a part of the monad, and you go in, and during that period you go into the heaven state. So I'm going to show you a depiction of this. So you have the ether, the second heaven, purgatory, which we were just talking about, and you have the second heaven and the third heaven. And in these stages, you basically are, in a certain sense, you are reunited with people that you knew and loved to a degree. And but the main point of being in these stages is to be working on creating your next incarnation. So the actual monad starts development of the different bodies, a new ether body, a new astral body, a new physical body, and they all are worked out and they are developed as kind of a blueprint during the post-life state once you get done with purgatory. And so you always have, to a degree, a conscious expression of who you'll be in the next life when you're in heaven. You're working on developing that next life. And so you're working on developing that again in each stage of the heaven process in between lives. You are working on creating your next vehicle for development in your next incarnation. And another thing to bear in mind is that they teach each incarnation changes sexes. So if you're a male in one incarnation, you will be a female in the next incarnation, because obviously you have to have all experiences, and thus you must change gender each incarnation to gain maximum levels of experience and development. And thus, I'm male. In my next incarnation, I'll be female. And in my last incarnation, I was also a female, which is extremely interesting and fascinating to me. And absolutely makes logical sense that you must change sexes and gender to gain more development, because otherwise you would be only on a one-sided track of development if you stayed male or stayed female, either way. So bear that in mind, that as you're developing when I'm there and developing after this life, my next body and my next incarnation, I will be building a female vehicle of expression for my next life. And that is just how it goes, apparently. And so every about 1,000 years or so, we change bodies into another gender to gain more development. That's just what they say. So this is extremely fundamental and necessary for a proper spiritual evolution, according to the Esoteric Mystery Tradition. And so another thing I want to go over are the different realities or planes of existence that we all experience on each level, or just the ones that exist, really. So you have the one universal spirit, you have the desire world, the physical world, the world of thought. And so here it is: the mineral group spirit, the plant group spirit, the animal group spirit, and the human ego. And then you have the different layers of the ether in the physical world, which go from solid, liquid, gas to the chemical ether, the life ether, the light ether, and the reflecting ether. And these are the 7 physical planes of existence. And then you go into the astral or desire planes, and then you go into the mental planes. And above that are the spiritual planes. So, and another thing to bear in mind when researching this stuff and when trying to understand this stuff is that in each previous phase, the mineral, plant, and animal phase, not the human phase, there are only group souls. So there's a mineral group soul, there's a plant group soul, and there's an animal group soul. And the soul of all animals, each one has a animal group specific soul, and when they pass away, they go back to the group soul before reincarnating again as another animal. So that every cat has a group soul, every dog has a group soul, every cow has a group soul, a horse, etc., because they have not yet gained the ego or the I that the humans have. They will in the future, and there are some animals that are closer to that than others. Horses, dogs, and cats are closer and to an ego stage, but they're not there yet. So thus they have a group soul. All animals have a group soul, so do plants, and so do the minerals. But humans have individuality and I. That's what makes us unique in this stage of evolution, is that you gain individuality and self-consciousness. And so all that has to be borne in mind when trying to understand the phases of evolution, because the stage we're in is the first one that gains individuality. And the ones previous do not have that individuality. They have group spirits. And I think that's absolutely fascinating. But so each stage gains something different. The mineral gains its own it goes through its vehicles of expression. In the plant stage, we get an ether body. And in the animal stage, we get the germ of the I, but we gain an astral body, a desire body. That's why animals have desires, just like we do, because they have that body. Now, in the human stage, we get the I germinated and gaining its expression. We become an individuality with self-consciousness, and we gain a mind. These will gain that in the next stage. This will become human, that will become animal, and that will become a plant. And then that will gain an ether body, and that will gain an astral body, and then the animals will gain an ego. And this is far into the future. You got to bear that in mind. But they are all progressing towards human. Every one of these. And this is partly why I think it's essential to see animals and plants as our future brothers and future humans. And we should treat them accordingly, because a lot of people don't see it that way in other faiths. They see these things as things to possess. So does the materialist, obviously. But a Christian should understand that animals are not just there for our domination, and neither should Islam or Judaism. They're future humans, and plants are future animals. So we should be extremely kind to the animals, because they are going to be humans, and we gain karma for how we treat them. And I found that absolutely fascinating, because I never thought of it that way before, that animals are future humans, and that made me think of them very differently when I learned this. And and changed a lot of my belief system regarding how we have been treating animals in in the 21st century, because it's not been great. Another thing I want to show is this is the Rosicrucian Cosmo-Conception diagram of what's called the 777 incarnations, the pilgrimage of our monads, through 7 revolutions around the 7 globes and the 7 world periods. And in the Rosicrucian Cosmo-Conception, the periods are labeled according by planetary names. Don't think that like Saturn or Sun or the Moon is really involved in any of those. But this is how it goes. Here is the first round that I mentioned in the last 2 videos. You start on globe A. This is an incarnation of the Earth, and you go down through each one of these globes, 7 for that period, forever period, and the Earth incarnates down to that level, the region of concrete thought, and then it goes dormant until the next period, where it drops to a descending arc in the sun stage, and our monad goes through each one of these with the Earth, and then there's what's called a minor pralaya, where it's a brief sleep stage, not like the great one in the grand cycle, but a small one, a minor pralaya, a minor rest cycle, before inaugurating the next period or epoch, the sun epoch, on a lower stage of density. And then you start again on globe A in the sun epoch, in this world, the world of what's called life spirit. And then then the monad develops along with the Earth incarnation, slowly going down into density, down to the globe D, which is the lowest density of the sun epoch. And then it rises back up again, with the monad evolving on each stage, and then goes into another minor pralaya. So where basically everything that has been evolved becomes absorbed and aggregated, and the developments are basically put in a stage of sleep where everything becomes properly absorbed and brought into its constitution. And then after a period of sleep, we drop down into the moon phase, the moon epoch. This is the 3rd round on globe A, and then so it's on another layer lower of density, and you drop down to the lowest point in that one, which is the etheric region. And then you rise back out again, the monads develop, and then rise back up to globe G, and then there's another minor pralaya for each one. And then then there's a reinauguration of the next evolutionary period, and here we are on Earth. And on globe A, it begins again. And this is the one that matters the most, is understanding this one right here, where we're on globe A. This is what's called the first epoch, generally. And then this is the Polarian epoch. And then this is the Lemurian epoch. And then here is the Atlantean. So as this falls, we fall finally fully down into the etheric and chemical region, full materialization. This is where we are right here. And this is very interesting, because we are now going to reascend back into the ether region, which is right here, the etherization of humanity and of the Earth, and on back up. Now, this is far into the future right here. This is far into the future. But we are here, and we are evolving to here, and that is our spiritual evolutionary path. This is the path of spiritual development, to rise back out of matter into the ether. And then once this is complete, we move on to the Jupiter, Venus, and Vulcan stages. And as you can see in the graph, the lowest stage of the Jupiter development of densification is the ether region. We will never fall back down into full physicality again. Ever. It's over. And then after this stage, the Venus stage only falls down to the astral realm. And then on the Vulcan stage, the last stage, we only fall down to the mental realm. the lowest part of the mental realm. And then we rise back out, and we're back at the top again, as were in the beginning on the Saturn stage. In the Vulcan stage, we are fully evolved with all of our bodies and everything we gained in between. Self-consciousness and mental conceptualization, but we'll have much greater skills at that point, and that is very, very far into the future, obviously. But that is the path of evolution. So we are here. We are right here on globe D in the 4th round, trying to get to this one. And this is why understanding cosmology truly matters, because there are forces. There's something below right here called the 8th sphere. And there are beings that failed their evolution, that are not physical. And according to Rudolf Steiner, he calls it Ahriman, the Ahrimanic forces. And they want to trap us down here even further in the chemical region and use us as vessels. And that's if we fail our evolutionary path. That's the second Earth, the 8th sphere Earth down here. That is failure. That's transhumanism. We're trying to get to here, and they want to draw us down here in what's called the 8th sphere, which isn't even physical. It's in the process of becoming physical, and that's the other Earth. That's why there's 2 Earths in some of these concepts, and that's the other Earth, and then this is this one. This is the proper path that is falling into de-evolution. We don't want to do that. That's transhumanism, that's biotech, that's nanotech, that's merging with technology, the singularity, and basically Ahrimanic. The Ahrimanic realm of the 8th sphere is a lower dimensional realm and is in the process of trying to draw us down in there. And everything that's materialist, everything that's part of scientific materialism, and the idea of re-becoming mineralized is a transhumanist concept. That's going back in the stage of evolution, remineralizing, staying in physicality forever, and we'd become a failed species, much like Ahriman did. The Ahrimanic stage, they did not want to progress, and so they became what's called stragglers. There are stragglers in every stage. It's simply a wave of monadic life that failed to evolve properly and was held back. And these Ahrimanic entities, and Ahriman in particular, want us to join them in failure down here in the 8th sphere. And that is what will happen if we do not evolve properly along our spiritual path and re-etherize and instead become transhumanist. If we merge with technology, we drop into the 8th sphere and we fail as a species. Everything else will move on to this stage and it'll keep evolving while we're left behind. And there's no reintegration into the life wave if we fail. So that's what's at stake. And that's fundamental to understanding why Ancient Aliens and some of these other things that are out on YouTube or in the media that are popularized and get great algorithmic pushing by the different media platforms, they get tons, millions of views, are because that's what the elites want. They want transhumanism. They want this Ahrimanic path for some reason. And they think that's the evolution, and when it's really de-evolution. And so the most popular stuff on the internet involves a materialistic cosmology and it involves genetic engineering, specifically, almost every time. Ancient Aliens teaches that we were created by aliens, genetically engineered, back in our past, when that's incorrect. If we were tampered with in the Atlantean period, which has probably happened, that does not mean we were created genetically. We are still a monad with multiple vehicles that have evolved, and only the physical one was maybe tampered with to a degree. That does not mean that's how we were created. That's materialistic. And this ideology actually comes to a degree out of the Nazis, who had this myth called the Aldebaran myth. And G.G. Young does a great job explaining this myth, where they believe they came from some other planet and that there were these entities and that they're genetically engineered, and that's why they get this idea of super races, but only based on the physical. So, long story short, we do not want to fall into the 8th sphere down here. We want to evolve to here. And that's what we're facing today with the New World Order, the global elite and transhumanism, the transhuman ideology. It is seeking to draw us into the Ahrimanic eighth sphere and to not etherize. So, once again, my name is Sam Robinson. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you for watching. This is the Gnostic Syncretist podcast. And today we've gone deep into the 7-7 incarnations, the post-death experience, and the mystery tradition, and what it has to say about reincarnation. And on our next episode, we will go into some other stuff about maybe the Lemurians and the Atlanteans, what it was like to exist in those states and those periods of time in those civilizations. So please join us next time. Please like, subscribe, and share this around.